following presentation was recorded live for the 18th Annual Convention of CALLERLAB. We take you live to the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, where our session is just getting underway.
A lot of you, I'm sure, maybe even most of you, if not all of you, have undoubtedly been to the prior two sessions in this little triad. The first one was on keeping it successfully simple, which was a magnificent show. The second one was on evaluating and making use of choreographic degree of difficulty. And we are here this afternoon to discuss the third part, the third leg of the triangle, managing formations and arrangements, dealing with the formations and the arrangements that a caller needs to work with in the day-to-day discharge of our business. My panelists, my fellow panelists on this program this afternoon are Jerry Junck and John Kwaiser. And my name is Marshall Flippo. I'll introduce my co-conspirators in a little more detail later on. What I'd like to do is open the program by providing some insights into how this particular subject began to rear its head in the not too very near past. It hasn't been, we haven't been as aware of it as we are now for a long, long time. And I'd like to open by giving you some insights into how that happened. These two skills, formation, management, this particular skill evolved as a direct result of the way we call, the way calling, patter calling particularly, has come about. Originally, we all called from memory. You know, you memorize a little eight-line poem, and you called it twice for the heads and twice for the sides. That was a whole tip. Our dancers, after a while, began to know the choreography better than we did. And we found it useful, at that point, to provide variety, choreographic variety. When we discovered that it was also fun for the dancers if they did not know what was coming next, if our choreography became unpredictable. When we tackle that particular problem, we've quickly discovered, and I'm sure there are many of you in this room who went through this metamorphosis, went through this change, we quickly discovered that our memory was not an adequate tool. We had to learn more than our memory would allow us to. We could practice our memory, we could learn to use it, it's like a muscle after all, and get better at it, but even so, the insatiable demand for choreographic variety that we ourselves generated amongst our dancers required us to find other ways to control the choreography we presented. And just about at that particular time, several calling methods or methods of choreographic control evolved. One of them was module calling, in which we took short pieces of choreography, and if we knew where we were when we began the module and where that module took us in terms of four distinct characteristics, and I want to just briefly review those to put our discussion into the proper perspective. If we had a Polaroid camera and a moving square out here, and we took a picture of that moving square, we would be able to identify the state of that square by four factors. One, very visible, is the formation. What formation do they form? Secondly, within that formation, what is the boy-girl placement, the deployment of the boys, of the men and the women in that eight-dancer formation? Thirdly, what is the sequence or the rotation state of both the boys and the girls? And finally, who is related to whom? Who has whom for a partner? If we identify in a non-moving square, in a static square, that everyone has their partner, then everyone can have their corner, everyone can have a right-hand lady, everyone can have an opposite lady, and we can have combinations of those, headmen with partner, sidemen with opposite, and so on. Well, those are the four things that we identify, that identify the state of a square. And when we went to module calling, the module caller had to know where that module began in terms of those four conditions, and he had to know, just as importantly, where the module took him in terms of those four conditions. And various kinds of modules developed. We had get-ins, we had get-outs, we had conversions, many, many things, but all dependent upon those four dancer states. Mental image calling uses it to a similar extent. Sight calling uses it to a very large extent, but we don't have to memorize as much. And when sight calling became as popular as it did, if some of you, I'm sure, will recall going to caller school, and when they taught sight calling, we taught one thing, and that was resolution. And this is opinion, not fact. My opinion is that we have generated, or we have developed, generations of callers who know how to resolve, but are not so sure what to do in front of it. What do we do before it's time for resolution? And it turns out that is really what the dancers evaluate. No dancer walks out of the hall saying, boy, wasn't that caller great? He got my corner every time. That's what we're supposed to do. That's not remarkable. So we had to learn what do we do in front of the resolution process as a side caller. And extemporaneous calling, as that particular function became known, is a skill that we are now beginning to recognize is at least as important as resolution. And it turns out that the ability to manage formations, the ability to work with formations, is the skill that allows us to work with the extemporaneous part of our sight calling process. When we are freewheeling, there's a little man on our shoulder who's telling us, I want to call a Dixie style to an ocean wave, and it puts me in a left swing through, and then I want to get into, my next call must be coordinate. If that's what my program game plan tells me, then this guy standing on my shoulder tells me, Peters, you have to find some way to get into a coordinate, and I've got to get that lefty wave into a column. That is the primary function of the extemporaneous caller. Now, I have to apologize. In the handouts, we asked that they put the arrangement charts as part of the handout, and all they gave us was formation charts. The goal, and I also asked for a blackboard, which didn't come. The goal of the extemporaneous caller, the thing he has to achieve, the thing he has to work for when you're learning how to do that, if you can imagine, if I had on a blackboard back here, say 10 different formations in columns, and then I had 6 different boy-girl arrangements for each of those formations. If we had that on the, can you imagine that, if you will? That was going to be on the handout. What we have to be able to do extemporaneously as we're calling, without stumbling, without going, let's see now, without doing that, if you're here and you want to go here or there or here or there, or from here to there, to any one of those, as your program may dictate. If you do that, if you're able to do that, then you're able to implement as a sight caller any part of your program, visually, extemporaneously, rather than from memory or as part of a mental image process or as part of a memorized modular process. So for the sight caller, formation management, the ability to manage those formations is absolutely critical. It's totally indispensable. It's wholly unavoidable. Now, a sight caller does not have to, or a sight caller, when he is resolving the square, is required to achieve a particular state for all 4 of those we mentioned before, the formation, the arrangement, the sequence, and the partner relationship. But he does that only at resolution time. He does not monitor all 4 of those while he is calling with each and every call. What he does monitor, however, is formation and arrangement. He must visually keep track of the formations. He must visually keep track of the arrangements that he is working with. And he must know where he is. He must know beforehand what the call will produce. The ideal goal is for the sight caller to know beforehand the formation and arrangement consequence of each and every call that he uses. What liar here has never called a right and left through when the couples were half sashayed? There's a liar there who never did. Good. Well, that's a function of formation management. We should always know, before we call the call, where it's going to take us, what the formation and arrangement consequence is going to be. But even that isn't enough. Once we're there, we also are required to know at least one call option. And the more you know, the better off you are. If you know 10 options from there, that's fine. But you have to know at least one. We should never be surprised by the formation consequence that comes up. And we should always know beforehand what calls will then be available to us. That is the basic formation management skill. And what I'd like to do now, before I introduce my cohorts here, is so we're all talking about the same terminology, briefly describe to you what formation means and some other terminology. The word formation defines 2 things about a given dancer setup. First of all, its physical shape. It's a circle, it's a square, it's a rectangle. It's what the mathematicians call the geometry of the square. It also defines the facing direction of each individual dancer within that geometry, within that physical shape. Wouldn't you agree that if we have dancers in facing lines of 4, all we have to do is change the facing direction, change the direction which some of the noses are pointing, and we can go from facing lines to columns, just by changing direction now. To columns, we can go to two-faced lines, we can go to trade-by, we can go to double pass-throughs and completed double pass-throughs. The geometry doesn't change, but just by changing the way the noses are pointing, we are able to change the name of the formation. So formations are dependent upon the physical shape of the square, the geometric shape of the square, as well as the facing directions of the dancers within that shape. The term arrangement defines within any given formation, the 6 possible symmetric boy-girl placements. If we're dealing with symmetric choreography, which is 99.9% of it, we're going to have 4 boys and 4 girls arranged in different deployments within a given formation. CALLERLAB has numbered them, and I wish that was on the chart. I can point to it. But if we're looking at facing lines, we have a boy-girl line, which we call 0. We have a girl-boy line, which we call a half. We have boys on the left end, girls on the right end. We call that number 1. Girls on the left end, boys on the right end. We call that number 2. The girls in the middle, boys on the end. Really, the way to look at that is the left end normal, the right end half sashayed. We call that number 3. And if we have the reverse of that, if we have the boys in the middle, the girls on the end, or the left end normal and the right end half sashayed, or the other way around. I just want to see if you're awake. We call that number 4. The numbers aren't important. They're a communication tool that some of the guys use, and really it helps communication. I use them because it helps me communicate to myself. As I'm calling, I'll tell me for this particular routine or for this particular choreographic effect, I need to set up a number 2 line. I don't have to say a girl, boy line. I say number 2 and I know what I mean. So it's just a communication tool. But those are the 6. And those 6 will appear in any given formation. And that's what we mean by arrangement. The next term we have to define is what do we mean by formation awareness. The term literally means exactly what it says. It's a caller's knowledge and recognition, his or her own personal awareness of the particular formations that his extemporaneous choreography may create, as well as the specific arrangements in which they will occur. As we said before, you should not be surprised by the formation or arrangement consequence of your particular calls. And this must be fingertip knowledge, or more accurately, tip-of-the-tongue knowledge. You can't stumble. You must know this beforehand. What calls is he allowed when he's there? What is best to call from there? That's another important thing. Not only what is allowable, but what is appropriate for this particular given circumstance. Appropriate in terms of the body flow and the timing. Appropriate in terms of the dancer's ability. Or maybe, even more appropriately, what is appropriate in terms of the dancer's preferences. Do they want it nice, easy, smooth, relaxed? Or do they want it real gung-ho charged? Do they want it difficult? Well, some audiences do. And our job, our judgment factor, is to be able to determine that beforehand. To be effective at any time, a sight caller, when he's calling extemporaneously, must be able to establish any formation in any arrangement that his program requires at any time, at his discretion. We are not allowed to go on a fishing expedition. Those of you may recall, if you've been to a caller school, the first time you had to tackle that problem, you went on a fishing expedition. Let's see if I try a touch. No, that won't do it. Let me try a swing. No, that won't do it. And we did a hit or miss. Eventually we hit upon it and maybe learned from that. But when you're on mic, when you're really calling your dance, and if you're calling extemporaneously, you have got to be able to do that at your discretion. That is your control in terms of formation management. That's what the term means. Now, what I talked about in these first few minutes of our session here has been strictly by way of introduction. It was intended to pave the way for what my 2 fellow panelists here are going to tell you and show you. They're going to deal very specifically with 2 very practical applications of formation management and formation awareness. The first of these 2 very talented gentlemen is a well-known full-time caller, lives in Carroll, Nebraska. He's been in the business for over 25 years. He has a very successful ongoing home program, He's on the festival circuit, calls a lot of special dances. He records on the Chinook label, and he's also a very nice guy. Please welcome Jerry Junck.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here. I was asked to pick a subject to theme a tip or a dance, how you would take a formation to theme a tip or a whole evening. And there's several questions that you need to ask yourself when you come in to do something like this. First of all, which formation do you wish to theme? You've got to choose one. You're going to do columns, diamonds, 3-1 lines, quarter, 3/4 tags, 2-face lines, what have you. Next thing you need to know is how good are your dancers. And the first question you need to ask there, are these your dancers that dance in your club, that you have a very good knowledge as to their ability and what they know and what you've taught them, or are you the guest caller for an evening at a club that you never called before? There are two very different settings there that you have to judge. Guest callers need to try some groundwork calls just to test these people out. And a good one, put them in ocean waves, can they all 8 circulate? If they can all 8 circulate, it'll let you know a little bit about them. Can they do a single hinge? Can they do a fan the top? This all revolves around judgment, really. If this is a class you're teaching, how many variations of this formation should you attempt with your new dancers, say for the first evening? And then later on, as you go through lessons, you can expand on that. But how far do you go your first night? Do you teach from every possible position the first time, or only standard positions till they're comfortable with that? How far should you go? Finally, you have to execute your plan according to the ability of the floor and use your judgment. And I chose for a formation, I decided to choose columns. And you have questions to ask there, too. Is the easy way, the medium hard way, and the hard way to get into a column? How do you set it up? And, of course, everybody knows that from lines you can touch a quarter. And the medium way maybe would be from an ocean wave to swing through, spin the top, and do a single hinge. And a hard way, and John and I talked about this, from an ocean wave, recycle, and the boy walk and the girl dodge. And should we have our square, Bill? Is that what we have? Can we have a square real quickly? 4 guys, 4 gals?
I counted at least 4 ladies.
I know we have enough ladies. Yeah, no. We want 4 girls and 4 guys. No, I know that. No, I'm not looking to embarrass anyone. Okay. Okay. Now, like I said, I've chosen the formation of a column, and we'll just take a look at the various ways to get into it. I think everybody understands from lines, if you touch a quarter, you can make a column. That's the very easiest way. Let's do this. Let's just have the head step forward and face your corner, make a wave. Okay? You can swing through, do that, spin your top, and do a single hinge. That'll make you a column. And it's that easy. Let's do this. Let's all 8 circulate. The boys run. Step to a wave. This is the hard way. John and I talked about this. We tried to come up with a way that we felt would be a difficult way to get into a column. Let's recycle. Boy walk, girl dodge. It makes a column, and it's very smooth. It's very, very effective. But it's something that you need to maybe work on a little bit. Have the boy walk, girl dodge concept first out of the recycle before you try it in a column. Let's have the boys run. Okay. Okay, step to a wave again. There are all different types of things like this that you can use. The next thing you need to know, you've decided how you're going to get into this. Okay, you work your column or your choreography with your column. Then what can you do within the column after you've formed it? What are you going to do with it? Let's do this. Let's recycle and do that boy walk, girl dodge thing again. You've got your column, okay? Okay, we all know we can all eight circulate. You can do all kinds of things like that. How about if we do a single hinge and a fan the top? You went from a column to an ocean wave very, very quickly, changed totally your formation. But you have to be aware, as Bill said, your boy-girl placements. What are you going to have when you get out of here? You're going to have a normal wave. You're going to have a, such as I guess you would call this. Or you're going to have the boys in the center. You're going to have a boy-girl wave. You have to know what you're going to arrive at before you call it, because there are some things that you couldn't do. So keep that in mind. All right, let's swing through. Boys run. Bend your line. Okay. Touch a quarter. All right, you can add to that a little bit. Let's have all eight circulate. Single hinge. Ladies trade. Recycle. Okay, we started out in a line. We went to our column. We're back to a line. Let's touch a quarter again. Went from a line to your column. All eight circulate. Single hinge. Now this is the same concept, but adding to it. Ladies trade. Recycle. Sweep a quarter. Now we have that box or 8-chain through formation. Okay, let's veer to the left from here. You could add all that. Now you're in a two-face line. All of that in a very, very few calls, but lets you see that you can go from a column to a box to a line to a two-face line, all with a matter of maybe just one call. So keep that in mind. And those are maybe some of the easy things you can do. Let's bend the line. Okay, we're back to a line. Let's touch a quarter. All eight circulate. Now, let's all eight circulate one more spot. I want to set this up right. Okay, now, we're talking mainstream. We could trade and roll out of this. At mainstream, I would say let's have you trade with that girl, turn to face her. Okay, you can get out that way. Plus, it'd be a trade and roll. But there's a way to work out of it. Do a right and left through. Okay, touch a quarter. Now, here would be something that would be a little more difficult to do in your group. In each group of 4, scoot back. In your group, and Daryl Clendenin taught me this, split circulate. Smile, Daryl. In your group, walk and dodge. In your group, partner trade. Yes, you did. Yeah. Now, notice that we're still working only with column choreo. I haven't done anything that's hard at all. But if you're going to call in your group, be sure you say in your group. It's, again, as Bill alluded to, it isn't what you call. Sometimes it's how you call it or what you set up, how you prepare this. Let's star through and make some lines real quick. Okay, touch a quarter. They're just all different things like this you can do to work the column. I wanted to add to this a little bit. Say we want to use the column concept a little bit differently. Let's circulate 1.5. All right, touch. There you go. Okay, let's just to show that you can work within this column without ever getting out of mainstream or being difficult at all. Center boys trade, spread apart. Girls cast right 3/4. You've got a wave of 4 girls. Center girls cast left 3/4. Make a wave with the 2 boys. In that wave, swing through. You 2 boys trade. You 2 boys run. You 4 only bend the line. You 4 pass through to the left, wheel and deal to the left. What have you got? You got lines. Yes, you do. Now, again, you can't call that bang, 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 bang necessarily. But don't move. But the point being, notice what you could do. Out of that column, all we did was circulate once and a half, and it makes a really big difference. Let's do this. Let's touch a quarter again. Circulate once and a half. All right. Now, just for difference. Now, this would be at plus. I use it at mainstream, but say you want to use this at plus. Let's trade the girls, and the girls spread way apart. Boys have a diamond. Boys, keep your points out there, Daryl. Diamonds circulate. Now, this is kind of a neat formation, but you have to be very careful what you could do. To get out of this, let's have the girls face in. Okay, center boy's hinge. Pick up a boy. Do a wheel and deal. Very good. All right, and squeeze in. You got to line with the girls. Okay, everybody touch a quarter. All 8 circulate, and you're back to a column. You can do all of that without really moving people much at all. But be aware of what formation are you going to come up with when you do this. You've got to know that. Now, Bill talks about extemporaneous sight. I maintain a very, very good quality sight caller. It's a whale of a memory caller. Not from the standpoint they remember a whole bunch of things takes me here. But they know that if I do this and this, I will come up with this type of formation. Boys run. Centers pass through. Step to a wave. Another thing that I like to use with columns is, say we would want to use a 6-hand column. And how would you set that up real quickly? Let's have boys circulate once and a half. All right. And a half. Girls hinge. Got a 6-hand wave here. Now, in the wave, I want you to swing through. Use 6, do a single hinge. Now, when I call this, out on the road especially, I'll tell the 2 lonesome boys that are not in that column, hold your hand up, just real quickly. Don't do nothing. The hardest thing for people to do when they're dancing is not to do anything. If they're standing there, they think, we are wrong, we're not moving. In the column of 6, use 6, circulate. Okay, now, I like to take people into things like this, but you need to get out very quickly. You can't leave them out here hanging on a limb very long, in my opinion. To do this, all 4 boys run around a girl. Center boys trade. You 2 boys run. You 4 wheel and deal. Now you're back to something they can handle. You're in a double pass-through position. And you haven't left them out of a comfort zone. Maybe that's what we should use. Haven't left them out of that comfort zone too long. And this is kind of what Bill was talking about, taking a formation, or what I would take for, say, the formation of a column, and work within the parameters of that column without really doing a lot of wild calls or getting people in formations that they can't handle, and yet provides a lot of variety to your dance. You wouldn't want to do this all in one tip. You might start with this part of it early in the evening and work through. Toward the end of the evening, maybe you could do in your group, scoot back, in your group, split circulate, in your group, walk and dodge. But you don't do that the whole night long. This is just for some variety and for some spice to your dance. And I really believe your dance should be 85% pure vanilla and maybe 15% of this to add some varieties to your dance. I'm really pleased with the turnout we have here today to show you that there is a great deal of callers, or there are a great deal of callers who do not understand formations very well. The first caller seminar I did back home was with people that I knew, callers that had all called somewhat. And of course they want to learn to sight resolve. I chose the 2-face line method to do it. Thought I had worked out my explanation really carefully. All 10 of these guys had called quite a little. They'd taught lessons, what have you. Anyway, when I worked out my explanation, I said, this is a 2-face line. I got to square up like this. I put vests on them so they didn't have to remember. And I explained it, walked them through it, and the guy in the back of the room asked me the best question I've ever been asked. He said, how do I get them to a 2-face line? So we're not aware of what it takes to put these people into formations easily, and effectively. I really thank you for your attendance, and Bill, I thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, dancers. Nice job, Jerry. Dancers, don't get too far away. I suspect John's going to need them in a little bit. To expand on what Jerry just said, any caller coach, anyone who's run a seminar or has taught a caller at school will tell you when you're teaching that particular method of sight resolution, the most difficult part of the process is to have them form two-phase lines. That's the most difficult part of the process, and it's a function of formation management. Most of you here, I'm sure, are experienced callers, but if there are any brand new callers or student callers in the hall, this is the kind of thing to be really concentrating on. It's going to stand you in very good stead, and it's a difficult skill. It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come overnight. It takes a lot of checker pushing and a lot of hands-on or on-mic experience, and I can't stress too strongly the value that you will derive out of working these particular kinds of problems. We also would like you to hold your questions to the very, very end, unless the individual speaker asks for an immediate question. We'll have a Q&A session when we're through. Now, my other fellow panelist is also you're a full-time caller, aren't you, John? Right. He hails from Loveland, Colorado. Has been calling for about 12, 13 years. Also popular on the festival circuit. I understand he has an enormously successful home program. He also records on Chinook. He's chairman of... That's what Daryl's doing here. He's checking up on the staff. I know what's going on. All right, yeah. Yes, boss. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. John is chairman of the CALLERLAB's Accreditation Committee, and he, too, is a very nice guy. We're just surrounded by niceness around here. How about a big hand for John Kwaiser?
Thank you. Daryl was sitting back there when Jerry first started. He had his contract in his hand. He's ready to tear it in two if he screwed up. So. The area of formation awareness that I want to cover is something that's very dear to my heart. And it's understanding formation awareness in teaching. When we're teaching new people to square dance. If we're not aware of formation awareness through the teaching process, we can make or break a new dancer's confidence in her ability to learn how to square dance. And this is an area that I'm going to cover this afternoon. Something I read in a book one day that I thought was really a real good quotation, and I'm quoting this out of the CALLERLAB curriculum book, and I'm not going to use the exact same words, because I can't remember exactly how they went, but it basically said this: a showman makes the easy look difficult. An artist makes the difficult look easy. When we're teaching people to square dance, we can't be a showman. We have to be an artist. Because it's hard for people to learn to dance. If you people have never owned a home computer, and you bought one and went home and turned that thing on and expected to start doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden you realize you got to try to figure it out, that's the same as somebody walking in and learning how to square dance. We do it every day. But when we get in an area we're not familiar with, we get pretty frustrated. You take educated people, your common folk that are out working every day, 50 hours a week, coming to your class, they'll get real frustrated learning how to square dance if we as instructors are not properly trained and understand what we're going to do when they walk in the class. And one thing is teaching them how to dance. Formations will have a definite bearing on how easily they'll understand what you're trying to communicate to them. Things like Jerry were doing out here, he understood what he was going to create. He didn't stand up here and just dream it up. He understood before he started into that column of 6 what he's going to do to get in and out into it, what he wanted to do to get out of it. And that didn't happen. He didn't wake up one morning knowing this. He learned it. Class is not only a learning atmosphere for the dancers, it's also a learning atmosphere for the callers. However, you can't experiment during class. You have to be prepared to go in and learn yourself. A wise caller will take advantage of this controlled condition to learn formation awareness. But he also has to be prepared with some knowledge of what formation awareness is before he tries it on his people. Otherwise, you'll lose their confidence. You won't build any confidence between yourselves and the dancers because you're groping. But it's a perfect place to prove what you've learned with your checkers. The formation that calls are taught from will have a direct effect on the success of the student understanding and learning a call. He will have quicker confidence in the caller. He will also have gained confidence himself and will learn quicker. A poor choice of formations to teach a call from will only confuse a dancer. Proper understanding of an easy, medium, and hard formations by which a caller will teach a call will have a direct bearing on how easily the dancers learn the call. Jerry demonstrated an easy way to get into a column. He showed you a medium way to get into a column and a hard way. He showed you an easy way to get out of the column, a medium way to get out of the column, and a hard way to get out of the column. And when you're teaching a call to your new people, there are formations that are easy to do the call from, medium to do the call from, and hard to do the call from. And as a teacher, if you want the people to learn how to dance a call, you want to get them into the easiest formation first. Then as they learn this call, move into the next stage, and the next stage of what they're going to be dancing when they get out in the real world. So what I'd like to do is get a square up. I won't spend a lot of your time because I'm just going to take a few selected calls, and I'm going to show you my idea of the easy, medium, and hard method of teaching people to square dance through formation awareness. So if I get my square back up, I'd really appreciate it, Daryl. A lot of this is going to seem pretty elementary to you. But the thing you want to realize is that to the dancer on the floor trying to learn this call, none of this is easy. None of this is elementary. This is difficult. This is foreign to them. This is you trying to learn how to use DOS on your computer if you've never done it before. Okay, we're going to look at a real difficult call, depending on how you teach it, of right and left through. When you do a right and left through in your beginner class, now I'm only going to give you my opinion. What I'm saying is not law, guys. You take this and use it whatever you want. But this is, when I teach a class, I look for the trouble spots. I teach around trouble spots. I show trouble spots, and I learn how to teach with the trouble spots because they're my greatest tool. The easy stuff's easy. It's finding the trouble spot that we have to identify as callers. Okay. There's a trouble spot right back there. Okay, my idea of teaching a right and left through, and I'm not going to teach the call because you all know how to do it. I want to show you where the trouble can come from. Teaching a right and left through from a static square, to me, is the easiest spot you can do it from. Because in a right and left through, the definition is you give a right pull by, you reach over, you courtesy turn, you're dancing the person next to you. The left-hand dancer courtesy turns the right-hand dancer. So the head couples give a right hand and pull by for me, reach over, courtesy turn the girl next to you. Very good. They already know courtesy turns. We taught that earlier. Side couples do a right and left through. They give a right, walk by, reach over, courtesy turn. Easy. Nothing to it. They know exactly who they're going to turn. It's the girl on their right, fellas. You're going to turn your girl next to you, your dancing partner. Now, let's go to the medium one. Heads, just slide over and make a line for me, if you would. You don't have to lead to the right in circle. You can just slide over and make a line. Okay, the next easiest, and like I say, why isn't this easy? Everybody give a right pull by, and that's all. When you get out there, don't do the courtesy turn yet. The reason this is medium in the easy, medium, hard is because the guy can still get the girl next to him. But the girl that's got a guy on both sides of her sometimes may get confused and not know which guy is going to courtesy turn her. To new dancers, this happens. So this, to me, is the next stage in difficulty for teaching a right and left through. Go ahead and courtesy turn the girl. Okay? So we know now our next formation is a facing line. Now, the hard one. Everybody do a star through. One of the hard. Slide through. That works better in this group. Okay, when we're going to do a right and left through from here, like I say, big deal. What's so hard about this? Give a right pull by and then freeze for me. Now, the dancers that come to the outside of the formation now, it's very easy. There's only one girl near them. He can courtesy turn her. However, the ones in the middle get real antsy about now because they're looking at somebody. This may be their partner depending on how you had the square arranged. That gal might be looking at her partner right now. And she says, he's got to do something with me because that's my partner. So she's going to want him to do something instead of the person next to her that is her dancing partner at this point. This is a hard right and left through for new dancers from the formation we're in. Go ahead and courtesy turn her. Step to an ocean wave. This is the hardest in the right and left through family because we're in an ocean wave. Because what do we have? We have our hands up. We're not going to dispute and talk about hands up or hands down in ocean waves today. We're not here for that subject. It's not styling committee. But right now you have your elbows bent, your hands are up, and the right and left through to them. They're not facing anybody. You know, so they're not really sure who they're going to courtesy turn or how they're going to give a right pull by, but we call it from here all the time after spin the tops. It seems we do a spin the top and a right and left through.
Isn't it also hard because they're parallel waves as opposed to a tidal wave?
Right. A tidal wave would be easier in a wave formation than a parallel wave. Because one's, first off, their hands don't feel right to do the right and left through. The second stage is getting difficult. The ones that are coming in the middle are right where they were from that 8-chain through formation when you started it. So you got a double dipper here on difficulty. So do a right and left through. New dancers in the middle are going to want to do something different than a courtesy turn. Okay? Did you all see what I'm getting at? Want me to rotate my square? This way? Okay. Star through. Okay. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Another one of your difficult right and left throughs is from your double pass through setup, because the ones in the middle are going to definitely want to do something with the people on the outside once they give a right pull by. Do a right and left through. New dancers are going to have a tendency to do something with the out-facing couple when they're not supposed to. Okay? So what did we look at? We looked at the formation of a static square, a facing line, an 8-chain through formation, a double pass through formation, standard waves, tidal waves. All these are going to have a bearing on the difficulty of the people learning the call you're trying to teach them because of the formation. Your job as a caller is to identify which formations are the toughest for my people to learn from, find the easiest, teach it to them, and then work up in your degree of difficulty for their success. Okay? Now let's take a look at this. Go ahead and get your girls square your sets. We're not into a sight resolution class here, so we'll just adjust. No, I didn't even look, Daryl. But I can tell you what, when we were done, I knew where you were at. Yeah, you're in an 8-chain through formation. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these that I think can create a problem, but I just want to identify a few of these different calls. Think about a square through from what we just got done doing. From a static square versus an 8-chain through formation or a line or a double pass-through setup, and callers that have called square throughs out ocean waves. Think all your different degrees of difficulty. Formation awareness will control that. One call that I see a lot of newer callers do sometimes that does create a problem for them. Let's do this. Head couples do a star through. Okay, I want everybody to do a partner trade. New dancers a lot of times will try to work in the center with people across from them. Everybody partner trade again. The new dancers and seasoned dancers, right now, if I said partner trade in the center, we'll do a star through. Okay? Centers do a star through again. Right now, if I call California Twirl, the centers are going to want to do a star through. Your new dancers are going to want to do this. They're going to reach for somebody they see. It's natural. So realize that when you're doing California Twirls and partner trades, what formation am I in? It's like those in your group, walk and dodge. In your group, split circulate. In your group. You got to realize the reason you identified that is so that they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't take away the chance of error. Okay? My pet call. Go ahead and grab your girl, or don't grab her. Just take a girl and square your set. Okay? Go ahead and grab her. Time's up. Turn throughs. Super good call. But everybody calls turn through after a swing through. Well, not everybody. I'm not going to say everybody. A lot of times, turn through is called after a swing through. And the reason I kind of picked on this call is I had a caller come up to me once and said, you know, I've got to teach turn and left through back when we had that on the Plus program. How do I teach it? And I explained how to teach it. It says, well, how do you teach a turn through? I said, did you teach this group to dance? This person said, yes. I said, well, turn through's on the mainstream program. Well, I didn't understand how to teach it then, so I just didn't teach it. So now we're into turn and left through, and this person's now kind of between a rock and a hard spot because now those two calls have not been able to be used because of not understanding a turn through. But why do a lot of callers not maybe use a specific call? They don't understand how to set it up and how to get out of it once they've called it. If they see Joe Blow in a singing call called swing through, turn through, swing your corner promenade, or in hash swing through, turn through, element left, they figure that's the only way I can do it. Like cross trail through. A lot of guys say, well, cross trail through your corner. What else can you do with it? Oh, I don't know. That's a get off from an out of sequence line. So if you understand where they start and where it ends and how to teach it and where it's the easiest to learn from and the hardest to learn from, it'll make it easier to call it. A turn through from a static square is going to be your easiest way to do it. Do a turn through. Heads. That tell you guys everything? My goodness. Okay, so that was easy. They just did it. Okay, heads do a U-turn back, and do a right and left through, and roll away with a half sachet, and do a turn through, and courtesy turn. Okay, no problem. Not tough at all. Then from lines would be the medium way. The way you look at it, you may think it's easier. Head couples pass the ocean. Swing through. The reason that sometimes it becomes more difficult is because a turn through, they normally say, starts from facing couples, and it's a forearm turn. Right now we are really not quite facing couples, and we don't have a forearm by any means at all. And the thing that the dancers have to do is adjust to a forearm and realize who they're going to do the turn through with, so it becomes a bit more difficult for them. So for the new dancer, do a turn through. They'll adjust, they'll turn through, they'll walk out. Okay? No big deal. But new dancers, if you taught them a forearm turn facing couples, you got them in a wave, it's like saying boxinette from a wave. You know, they're not quite in position to do it, so it's just a little tougher for them. Once they get it down, they'll understand it, and they'll have a lot of fun with it. So I like to work it from here. Turn through is a little bit tougher. But the ocean wave, I think, is the tougher formation to work a turn through out of by the definition that you're going to teach it by. Okay? Star through. Another call that can be easier to teach and learn is a Dixie style to an ocean wave, depending on the formation you teach it from. I have my own little teach that I like to do that the purists will probably lynch me when I walk out of the room. They're all quit looking at me. Boys, just with your partner, fellas, just slide in behind your partner. Just step back and slide in behind her. Okay? We have, Bill, what's this called? A double track or double pass through? Single track?
It's a number one double pass through.
Number one double pass through formation. Everybody write that down. Okay? I'll teach a Dixie style from here because I find it's the easiest way to teach it. And the way I teach a Dixie style is, at this point, everybody knows how to do a pass-through, or they know how to give a right pull-by, and they know how to do touch-a-quarters. And if I say touch-a-quarter, they'll use a right hand. If I say left touch-a-quarter, they'll use a left hand. So what I'll do is I'll have the leaders take a right hand, pull by, and left touch-a-quarter with the trailer. And I've done a Dixie style to an ocean wave. And that's about as long as it takes to teach new dancers how to do a Dixie style to an ocean wave. And after I've done that a while, when I get them in a line facing and do a right and left through and do a Dixie style to a wave, they will adjust to this 1 point formation I was just in.
This is a 1/2 parallel wave.
1/2, okay. Isn't this left-hand wave? Boys cross run. Girls slide over and trade. Single hinge. Girls fold behind the boys. So if you're into dancing by definition and you want to teach a Dixie style to a wave, it's real easy at this point. If you have the leaders give a right pull by, do a left touch a quarter. You've done a Dixie style to an ocean wave with the boys leading this time. So it's a real slick way to kind of get in the Dixie styles by using a formation that we don't use a lot of. Okay, girls cross run, boys slide over and trade. Single hinge. Boys fold behind the girls. Ladies lead Dixie style, right pull by, slide over, left touch a quarter. Okay? Boys cross run. Girls trade, do a single hinge, and walk and dodge, and a partner trade. Now, I like to set the double track up because of the ease of teaching it with that leader give a right pull by, left touch a quarter to give me my left-hand ocean wave. Once you've got them doing that, the next medium step would be right and left through. Ladies lead Dixie style to an ocean wave. And the guy sliding over to the left touch a quarter with her. So it sure saves trying to get that flat-footed Dixie style teach down if you can set up a little, I call it the double track. Okay? Boys cross run, girls trade, recycle, veer to the left. Okay. Both of these people, how am I doing on time? Okay. Both of Jerry and Bill have talked a little bit about the ease of going in and out of a formation. Jerry showed you how to get in all those counts real quick. And I want to show you how being aware of a formation, how it's going to be arranged from a previous call will set up the flow of a call you want to use. Setting up the flow for a fan the top sometimes is fairly difficult. A lot of people, I'm going to show you what I consider easy, medium, and hard fan the top setups within given formations. If I want to do what I consider an easy fan the top, now I'm assuming that people understand the preceding calls. They've been taught correctly. Tag the line all the way through, face to the right. Girls run around the boys. I know I'm going to a right-hand wave, fan the top. Okay? I took it from a two-face line to a right-hand wave with a run, and the run set up my body flow for fan the top, knowing what formation I was going from and into. Recycle. I'll show it to you again. Pass the ocean. Girls trade. Girls run. Couples circulate. I know that when I run the ends of this two-face line, that I will have a right-hand wave form. I know that the ones coming to the center's body is flowing forward. Their left hands will be able to touch, and they'll be able to flow right into the casting three-quarters. Fan the top. Ends run. Ends run. Fan the top. Cast three. Ends move up. Okay? So what did I do? I understood my formation I was going to, and I also set up body flow for a success ratio for fan the top of almost 100%. Recycle. Do a right and left through. Roll away with a half sachet. A lot of people, fan the top technically could be called like a swing through. You don't have to tell them to step to a wave. If I tell these people to fan the top right now, my success rate's going to be about 0. Okay?
This is not the degree of difficulty session, guys.
Okay? But the formation I'm getting within, I know that I can set it up from a facing couple formation by doing this for success, boxinette, and fan the top. Girls cast, the boys move up. Okay? Recycle. I know I'm in an 8-chain through formation. If I call a fan the top right now, the success rate is going to drop tremendously. Star through. But if I start from here and pass the ocean, take me to the wave, I could start the fan the top action because they'll be catching left hands as they come in. Pass the ocean and fan the top. Little overflow for the girls. Single hinge. Single file circulate. Now, another good way to set up, I'm in the column that Jerry was in earlier. I want to go into a fan the top. I got to be in some type of a wave. Single hinge. In your group, fan the top. You don't have to say that. Okay? So those are just, go ahead and have a seat, guys. Thank you very much. So knowing you're starting and ending formation, understanding the call, setting it up to succeed, know which formation creates easy, medium, and hard theory for success for teaching, and just calling fan the tops, turn throughs, whatever it may be. With your understanding of formation awareness, you'll be able to successfully take your dancers through things they may not have been able to do before, and may cut down on your teach time by making it something they can't miss on.
Thank you, John. What we have tried to demonstrate here this afternoon about formation management and formation awareness is that these are calling tools. They are very useful instruments of our craft. And Jerry has shown you how to use these tools in a programming application, and John has just shown you how to use the same tools as a teaching application. I would ask you all to ask yourselves, how well-versed am I in formation management? And how do I know how well-versed am I? How do I know whether I have this skill to the degree or to the extent that I should have it? I have an easy way for you to check. I'm not going to ask you to do it here. You do it at home. Make a list of all the formations with which you deal on a regular basis at your average dance. You're going to have lines, you're going to have waves, you're going to have columns, you're going to have diamonds, you're going to have circles and squares and so on. Make a list of all of them. And then diagram out on 3x5 cards the 6 arrangements within each one of those formations with which you deal on a regular basis. You'll find that you'll probably have about between 10 and 15 formations that you deal with regularly and which you expect your dancers to be able to respond to easily and quickly and on command. Make a diagram of all the arrangements in all those formations on 3x5 cards. Shuffle them like a pack of cards, like a deck of cards. Shuffle them. Turn them upside down on your table, on your calling stand, right here. Upside down. As you're calling, freewheeling, extemporaneously, turn over the first one. And without stumbling, bring the dancers with smooth choreography to that particular formation arrangement. And once you're there, without stopping, without stumbling, turn over the next card. Whatever you get, go from where you are to the next one. If you can do that without stumbling, what we call in caller school, without falling through the trap door, Some of you have been. For those of you who don't know, when you call in, when you come to my caller school and we have you on the microphone, the cardinal rule is that you're standing on a trap door. And any time you go, let's see, the trap door opens, you're never heard from again. Well, the trick is, that's the real world. It's a very good exercise, and it puts pressure on you. It's a very good exercise, and the thing is, if you can go through all those cards and set up the formation and arrangement that you need, then you own this particular skill. I cannot stress enough how important I think it is. It's a very, very important calling skill, especially if you're calling extemporaneously. If you're using some of the other methods, the memorized choreography or the written down cue card choreography will take care of that for you. Someone did that beforehand on the kitchen table with checkers. But when you're calling extemporaneously, extempore, then you need to know this, again, as fingertip, tip of the tongue knowledge. Anybody have any questions? We'll take all kinds of questions now. Anybody have any? Anybody have any answers? Yes, sir.
When you're talking about the right and left through, it seems to me that a new person who's never square dance before in their lives, when you start to describe right hand pull by, the man's going to do what? He's going to pull, and the girl's going to get pulled. And when she gets pulled, she's going to automatically turn out. And when she turns out, that's why 99% of those women are up backwards.
John, you want to comment on that?
Well, I guess it'd have to be the...
I guess you have to read exactly or analyze what terminology you want to use for a pull-by.
So what I'm saying is
The,
why the girls keep turning around on them all the time? And the reason they're turning around is because the man is pulling too hard on the left through. And that needs to be emphasized when you teach.
okay. So, yeah. Okay. Working with more description of styling, so to speak. In smoothness. Here again, one way to handle something like that is to use a demonstration square and show what will happen and the way it should be done.
The other thing was the Dixie style of Ocean Wave is
One thing on that right and left through that he was talking about, what I do as a teaching technique, they do the right hand pull by to look up and wink to their left, to that guy, and then he'll courtesy turn. And that helps.
They also make arrangements. Not the kind of arrangements we've been talking about either. Yes, sir.
One quick thing regarding right and left through that I didn't realize this until I was working at a caller school once. A courtesy turn, where does it start? Side by side. So you're teaching right and left through. After you do the walk by, that's a good time to stop and re-show your definition that a courtesy turn is side by side to reach over a courtesy turner. But a lot of guys, when they see in the teaching list, courtesy turn, and then they go down to the chains and the right and left throughs, they blow off courtesy turn, they go down and they teach right and left through and ladies' chains. They never taught the dancers that a real courtesy turn is side by side.
Yes, ma'am.
Comment to that is that before I teach that, I have to get the pass through. Now, courtesy turn one.
Sure. Sure. Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
The question was, how would I teach right and left throughs motion waves? The best way I found to teach a right and left through motion wave is a demo square. There's only certain things that we can explain where show and tell will do so much more. You can spend a whole evening teaching right and left through motion waves, and if you don't use the proper terminology, they're never going to figure it out. You get up and show them in 2 minutes, you and your dancing partner and a pre-picked couple, or tell them what you're going to do, and you get out and show them the correct way of doing right and left through from waves, and they'll understand it. However, the best thing to do is show them the wrong way, too. Show them what they're going to try to do wrong, then show them the correct way, and that normally takes care of the problem, at least in my experience with my people. I've
balance forward, balance way back.
Okay, balance forward, balance way back. That kind of gets them realizing they have almost like facing couples and they have hands. David?
Check. Dave Harry, Washington. What I do, first I tell them to do a right and left through from facing couples. And then what I do is I tell them, okay, let's do another right and left through. But once you get the right hands joined and you're side by side with each other, stop. Look, what you're in. You're standing in an ocean wave. Pull through the ocean wave and then do your courtesy turn. And it works.
Yes, sir.
I use the system to lean forward, take the feet, same body going your direction when you want to courtesy turn. Also, our teacher, right that through, I use the girls to the left turn signal. Make contact with the man, girl don't touch till the boy makes contact with the official behind you courtesy turn.
I'd like to change the subject, if I may, and take questions that deal. This is not a teaching session. Very good points, but it shows how formations can indeed tie in with teaching. But I'd like to any questions on formations and/or arrangements, or their use, their application. Yes, sir.
Is there any easy way of actually noting how a 3-1 line formation is? Because you have a right hand midway from one end, the left hand midway from the other. Is there ever going to be something?
Well, there is a definition for what there are 8. A good exercise for you, sir, would be to diagram, if you would, the 8 possible symmetric 3-in-1 lines. A nomenclature, you mean? What do we identify? No, that has not been done. We simply acknowledge that there are indeed 8. I suspect if we were to do that, we would count the one where from normal two-phase lines the centers do a walk and dodge. That would be the one that is most callers are most familiar with and most comfortable with. But there are 8 different possibilities for that, and all you have to know to identify them in a 3-in-1 line is check the line, and if 3 are facing one way and 1 is facing the other, whether it's in or out, if that combination exists, that's a viable 3-in-1 line. And if those of you who don't understand that, or haven't dealt with that, I would urge you, get a piece of paper and a pencil and see how many 3-by-1 lines you can identify. And you'll find that there are 8. Yes, sir.
I think everybody has their own idea of what formations they expect their dancers to know by name. But I'd be interested in knowing from your panelists, what formations do you, in other words, do you say to your dancers, you're in columns and expect them to know that? What formations do you expect them to readily identify?
The question was, what formations do we as callers expect our dancers in general to know by name? I would say the main ones: columns, waves, lines, maybe an 8-chain through. You might point that out. I don't worry about that too much for me. Waves, columns, lines to me would be the most important ones. Well, if you're plus, of course, you've got diamonds, things like that. But on a mainstream level, that's the way I would go. And I know Bill has worked very hard to set up these 0, 1/2, 1, 4. Now, some people understand these. They know these specifically. I really don't. I realize they're there, and I have a chart. If I need to look them up, I could look them up. I don't really worry about that. I don't worry about arrangement in that respect, as whether it's boy, girl, or whatever. I just call it, and I know what I'm going to have and be able to get out of that. I don't worry about being able to identify that on the spot. Doesn't mean you have to. I think you should. I think we should know that as callers.
Just know it's there.
We have to be aware of it, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what those are.
I have a slightly different answer than what Jerry does. I do expect my dancers to know any formations, except the esoteric ones, the really rare ones. But most of the common ones that they come in contact with, I expect them to know that. When I teach beginning dancers, I count it as a part of my responsibility as their teacher, in addition to teaching all the calls, to teach the names of the formations, because in part of that teach is going to be when you get into calls that are allowable from a variety of formations, that they understand that. They understand that you can do these particular calls from this formation and from that formation, and I must be able to identify them, which means they have to have a knowledge of what that formation is. Anything else? Yes, sir. Go on.
I have always thought callers.
No, get to that formation without a resolution, with no get out. Just the only requirement, if you're turning over those cards in that particular exercise, the only requirement that I would make is that you do it smoothly and comfortably with good body flow and without stumbling, without falling through that trap door. You had a question, sir.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. I
We call it Who's On First. We could play it here, as a matter of fact. I won't take the time to do it now, but with your partner or with another caller, instead of lying about how many people you had at your last dance to each other. That's a very nervous laugh, guys. Play the game. I say head square through, and he then must give me a call, and go on to the next call from there, and just trade, and be sure you know where you are. And if you get to doing it pretty good, you can even resolve that way. You know, play that game. It's a lot of fun. It is a marvelous exercise for developing this particular skill that we're talking about. It's a very good exercise for that. Anything else? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You should know beforehand. You should not be surprised by the formation consequence. You should never say, oh my goodness, is that what that does? The laughs are getting nervouser and nervouser. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm uncomfortable with that. He says you can visually see it as it comes, as it emerges. Maybe some people can do that. I find that I can't. I am much more at ease and much more comfortable, and much more secure in what I'm doing if I have real good knowledge of what that's going to end up in. That's not to say I achieve this ideal all the time. It's not to say that I don't occasionally fall through my own trap door. But that's the goal I shoot for. Matter of fact, I don't really believe I know anybody. There probably are a handful of callers around who have enough of a steel trap mind to be able to do that as they're calling. I don't know very many, though, who really achieve the total ideal. That is to know beforehand what they're going to have and know what to do when they're there. Each and every time, with each and every call, never be surprised and never have to stumble. That's a tough chore. That's the really tough part of extemporaneous calling. And formations is what it's built on. The ability to manipulate formations, to set them up and to deal with them and to do it smoothly and comfortably is the one skill that takes a lot of well, it's not the one skill, many of our skills, but it's a skill that takes a lot of experience. You don't learn it overnight. It has to be done, it has to be cultivated, and it's not going to happen automatically. You've got to work at it. I thank you for your attention. We're glad you came.